1,200 families within the next. Oh, awesome. Heading Home initiative in the next for this next year, but we're looking at doing 1,200 families within that. For the things that I just kind of talked about, I'll go ahead and pop that in the chat. And this Heading Home campaign is, like I said, it's with the Housing Authority. You have Destination Home. I see David Lowe's here today. So thank you, David. And partners at the city. So I'll pop all that stuff kind of in the chat, so you have links to all that information, and then as well as my contact info as well. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to go back to Senator Cortese. I understand he's with us. Dave, I gave you an amazing introduction that you missed, and we hadn't started recording yet either. So it's
okay.
But I really I told everyone how much I admire and respect you and what you do, and how you've been a mentor to me as well as my therapist, and you got me through some pretty challenging times when I was on the council. So I just wanted to let everybody know the type of person that you are, and now I'd like to hear your updates and comments on how the state is addressing homelessness.
Well, thank you, Vice Mayor, and thank you for the introduction you made earlier. Hope I'm not late. I had us down for 5:30 originally, and then they told me a couple hours ago to tune in at 5:40. So here I am. But coming from you, everything you said is a really high compliment, and I appreciate it. And thank you for your even-temperedness and all of the good work that you've done, and your role in trying to be the glue that keeps that city council together. I know you've worked hard at that over the years, so we all appreciate it. As far as the state capitol, obviously I've been there less than a year. I was this county supervisor through December 5th of last year, and I had one day off December 6th, and then December 7th I was sworn in at the state capitol. We had to introduce our initial legislation on that day. And that ended up being some climate bills that I introduced. But over the course of the year, I was called by our Senate Pro Tem, Tony Atkins, Senator Atkins, and she asked me if I would be one of a handful of members, about 6 senators, that would serve on a housing work group with her to try to shepherd through housing legislation to make sure that we got a lot done this year in that regard. And certainly more could have been done, but I joined the governor just about 3 or 4 weeks ago in Oakland, where he signed 27 of his 31 bills that he signed onto, altogether 31 bills from both houses, the Assembly and the Senate. One of those was mine, which creates in housing and community development, in HCD at the state level, a special division, a special unit, and employees that will start assisting cities, school districts, and other local agencies that have vacant land to put that vacant land into production. And I know both you and Mayor Liccardo at one point said to me, even though San Jose has a housing department, and even though San Jose is a big city and knows what it's doing, it could even be helpful to San Jose. But certainly smaller cities that you're surrounded with in San Jose, that we're all surrounded with, and up and down the state, and school districts, they just don't have the capacity to do a lot of that work, to try to figure out where to get tax credits and how to finance projects. And we've all seen and heard our constituents complain about the vacant land that they see, and they wonder why it isn't being put into housing. I think what the governor did, Vice Mayor, after the worst part of the pandemic, is I think he regrouped and kind of went back to his home base. He kind of went back to where he was before the pandemic. And you remember he launched Project Room Key and Project Home Key at that time. In fact, San Jose, city of San Jose, and all of you good folks took great advantage of that and started pulling down those dollars. Even though it wasn't, the magnitude of the dollars really wasn't enough, right? We all knew that. I think the governor knew that. I think he was trying to break through because the previous governor had not done anything like that. And this governor wanted to address homelessness as well as housing production head on. But the importance of Project Roomkey is we've not been able to get a handle on the fact that the federal government through HUD, really started to freeze shelter money, short-term shelter money that we used to get at the city. It would come through community development block grants and so forth. That ended, and there's still shelter money out there that supports our current shelters, but they decided, the federal government, even in the previous administration before Trump, hey, look, we want permanent supportive housing, and we're not going to give you a lot of money for shelters. Well, that, I think that killed us in San Jose. It literally killed people on the streets, and you just can't explain away in any other way the fact that we went from about 2,500 homeless just a few years ago to 10,000, 11,000 homeless on the streets today. Not all in San Jose, of course, but in the county as a whole. So that's what happens when you take resources away. And I think what the governor and the legislature is trying to do now is say, look, we're California, we're pretty big, the fifth largest economy in the world. We can step in on our own and start replacing some of those dollars that we used to get from the federal government. And that's where you see multi-billions of dollars now coming into Project Roomkey and Homekey. And I think a lot of our neighborhoods want to know, how do we get some of that money, to deal with the homeless that we're seeing, right? The tents and the people sleeping on the sidewalks and everything. Every neighborhood association I talk to now has that question. Well, how do we get our share? And I know both the county and the city of San Jose, are going to be implementing those programs and have both announced and embraced those programs, especially Project Roomkey. So that's where that's at. We will push hard. The good news is, we will push hard for more. That we're not done. This has got to be ongoing. It's got to happen like this every year. And the good news is that the governor's finance office just announced that next year we're looking at a good, healthy, robust surplus again. Maybe not as big as the one we had this year of 75 billion, but big enough to keep investing in the homelessness issue and in incentives for housing production and for sheltering people. So I think you can look forward to more resources coming our way next year.
Thank you, Senator Cortese. I know that you have to leave early. We were going to take all the question and answers at the end, but since you have to leave, do you have a few minutes to maybe take a couple of questions?
Yeah, I think I have a 6 o'clock. I have to shift over to approximately 6. But go ahead, let's start the questions and I'll let you know when I have to leave. I'll figure that out right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you
6.
can raise your hand, if you have questions for the senator. And I see first person is Doris. Go ahead, Doris.
Yes, I'm curious. Gail Osmer mentioned that she's been working with the homeless for 30 years, but it's gotten worse. And I'm wondering, why has it gotten worse over 30 years? That's a pretty long time of taxpayer investment money. Can you brief us on that, Mr. Cortez?
Yeah, I think what's happened is, and I was just alluding to that a minute ago. I was on the city council, for 8 years, and I was on what was called the Community Development and Block Grant Commission or Committee. And that the reason we had such a committee is because community development and block grant money used to come in from the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development for a lot of things, to support nonprofit organizations and things like that. But a big chunk of that money was for housing the homeless. And here locally, and even more so in eastern cities in the country where it's cold, or Midwestern cities, that money was used for shelter programs, right? To keep people out of harm's way. Going back now about a dozen years, 10 to 12 years ago, the federal government decided that it would be more important for HUD money, that kind of money, to be used for permanent apartments, like you see built that the prior speaker was talking about, like you see with Measure A, permanent supportive housing. But permanent supportive housing takes a long time to build, and it doesn't get anybody out of the creeks and out of the streets right now. It's not a hurry up kind of a solution. It's a longer term solution. And so I think what has happened, is they did that at the federal level. I'm not blaming them. They made that decision to focus their money on permanent housing. We didn't really have any money at the local or state level for shelters. And we hit the worst recession, basically a depression, a dozen years ago. And homelessness, among other things, in terms of poverty, just took off. And so we found ourselves with the same 1,700 shelter beds just a few years ago. Just before the pandemic, we had 1,700 shelter beds. That was the same number we had when I was a city council member, 13, 14 years ago. So no catch-up work was done to keep up with this large and growing poverty and gap in housing for people that are at low income. And so they end up on the streets. That's basically it. It's happened here. It's happened in droves in other urban centers like Los Angeles and San Francisco, of course. And so the investment that you see and that you hear about has been primarily for permanent housing, not for short-term shelters. And that's why it seems like, hey, we as taxpayers are investing a lot. Why don't we see these tents going away that we see? Well, because the money that you've invested a lot in is for the building of apartments. Many projects are underway with that money, but that really hasn't addressed the rapidly growing encampments and tent cities, because that requires a different bucket of money, if that makes sense. It's weird that there's two different buckets of money that you don't commingle that money, but that's a pattern that the federal government and even the state of California has set a long time ago. Project Home Key, that's for permanent housing. Project Room Key is for short-term shelter. And I think what all of you want to push for, and I need to push for, is more and more, and Gail needs to push for, is more and more short-term shelter money to get people off the streets right now.
Thank you. Next question is from Russ. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, thanks for that explanation. I thought it was very good. It kind of dovetails into what I was saying is too. We are applying what I heard you say a couple of times was billions to it. So it's a problem that we seem to be throwing a lot of money to, but we're not seeing some progress. So it helped hearing that description. I'm sorry, I have to say the first lady had talked. I have to say it was a bit condescending to hear you talk about NIMBYs as if we're a problem. I think Not in My Backyard is an issue that we're talking about. Homeless people, to me, are not neighbors. I feel that there are people that have encroached in our neighborhood. And if it were just simply, I camped out, and that would not be a problem, probably if it was transit kind of thing, but they're parking there. I see the exit ramps, there's garbage. I can't imagine what kind of cesspool they're living in. I'm sensitive to that we have this situation. I want to feel like I had the answer. I don't, and I know this is a difficult problem. But what can we do about that problem? Just the garbage and things that they're doing. Why is that allowed, that kind of situation on these exit ramps in people's neighborhoods in our parks? Is that something we can't solve immediately? If they're not taking care of the areas, there's something we can do for that kind of immediate need.
Yeah, yes. The short answer is yes. And by the way, I didn't even realize I said anything. I didn't realize I even used the word NIMBY, so I apologize.
It was the first lady that spoke. She introduced and talked about as if the NIMBY, we all heard about the quote unquote NIMBYs.
Oh, okay. I get it. Yeah. So look, the fact of the matter is it's not acceptable to have encampments and litter and piles of dumping and trash and things left behind after police sweep an area or whatever. That's an issue in and of itself. It's affecting our riparian corridors, our creeks and everything. There's a companion program now that just got created, and Vice Mayor Jones will take advantage of it. I guarantee you. It's literally hot off the press, called Clean California, which is dedicated money directly to cities and counties for litter cleanup, not Caltrans. And it's not that I don't trust Caltrans, but Caltrans doesn't have sufficient capacity and staff to do the cleanup in their areas. A lot of the areas aren't Caltrans. They're city areas or they're water district areas. So the city and the county now can pull down these grants from Clean California. In addition to that, I asked for a special budget earmark, which was granted just a couple months ago, of $2 million to come into the city and the county to augment their efforts so they can hire Conservation Corps or whatever is needed to help out. I think probably Gail would tell you that she's all for litter cleanup and she's all for, porta potties and things as temporary measures until you can get people into shelters. But that earlier problem I was describing of not having shelters to put people in, then causes a situation. It's like pushing a balloon where the police come in, they sweep, they move people from my neighborhood to your neighborhood. You're surprised. They're all San Joseans. 97% of them are, believe it or not, or Santa Clara Countyans, the homeless. But they're pushed around from your neighborhood to my neighborhood to the next neighborhood. And it's an unwelcome feeling, of course. But that's unwelcome feeling that's happening because they should be getting placed in shelters and they're not. And that's what we've got to correct immediately. I'm sorry, I have to leave, Vice Mayor, as you asked me when my time would be up. And
Yes.
my next call just came in, my Zoom. So I very, very much appreciate being here, and I'm happy to come back, and I'm happy to use my staff to work with your staff to further connect people with resources and also answer questions. Because if anyone didn't get a chance to get their question answered today, please get that forwarded to us, and we will make sure you get an answer in the next 48 hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator
Bye,
Cortez.
guys.
Bye-bye.
So for the folks who have their hands raised, Annalee, can we just capture, if they just write their question in the chat, can we just capture that?
Sure, yeah. I can do
Okay. And then we can get your questions over to the senator. So please put your questions in the chat. Okay, next up, we have Olympia Williams and Andrea Flores Shelton from our Beautify SJ team, who currently oversee trash cleanup and sanitation services at encampments. So it's a perfect segue to hand it over to Olympia and Andrea.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I'm always glad to see community here. My name is Olympia Williams, and every day I get to come to work and manage our Beautify SJ program. What that is the city's beautification and blight reduction strategy. And there are a variety of programs under our umbrella, everything from our anti-litter, anti-graffiti programs, neighborhood dumpster days. I have the Neighborhoods Commission and a variety of other programs that really work with neighborhoods to improve the quality of life. One program that we were able to launch during the pandemic and really during that shelter in place is how do we address the trash and debris at our multitude of encampments throughout the city. Most people don't know this. We have 220 plus encampments throughout the city of San Jose in a variety of locations. It's in every council district. It touches every neighborhood in every corner of our city. I believe we have about 6,000 people who are unhoused in our community, with a significant portion of those needing to have services because they're living outdoors. And one of those large services is what we call the encampment trash program. Our goal is to get to every encampment every other week and pick up trash. We work with, in coordination, unhoused residents, whether they're living in a built structure or they're living in a vehicle, to really go in and try to clean up those encampments and make them a lot more manageable as we're waiting for housing to come online. My boss, Andrea Flores Shelton, gets to do the heavy lifting. She deals with all of the policy, the budget, and the numbers about Beautify SJ. So I'll let her say a couple words as well.
Thank you, Olympia, and thank you, Vice Mayor Jones, for having us. I wanted to let folks know that we gave a very robust presentation to the City Council just yesterday evening, and we would be happy to drop in the link to both our memo and to our presentation before the meeting ends, so you can have a chance to review it. To Gail's point earlier about opportunities to engage with council, so that's why I wanted to let you know we gave a robust conversation and robust presentation last night. Included in that presentation was an update on our budget. So how much is the city investing in encampment trash and beautifying the neighborhood? So what we wanted to let you know is that in our current adopted budget that Vice Mayor Jones and the mayor and the council adopted, there is 12.2 million that is being focused, that was added to our budget for this year. And that is again to take us from bi-weekly encampment trash service to weekly. So our goal is to have a cleaner city, but one of the ways we need to do that is to provide our unhoused encampments with the type of service that we all get, which is weekly residential service, right? Imagine if you didn't have your trash picked up every week, it would accumulate and it would probably spill out, right? And so that's what we see with our encampments. So we are using these funds and we're hoping to fill an extraordinary amount of new positions that the council provided us. We have 28 vacancies that we're hoping to fill in December. And that means we will have boots on the ground in January, trained again, to help clean up our city. In addition, you are aware that we have more American Rescue Plan dollars that the city is going to be allocating. And we have requested, in addition to the 12 million that we were given in June, we are requesting another 4.6 million. And the council will be deliberating on that November 2nd, which is this coming Tuesday. What we're hoping to do with those dollars is to bring on more funds for illegal dumping. Currently, we have a team of 8 folks that are out on the streets responding to your complaints about illegal dumping. We want to bring an additional team on to the city streets to proactively pick up illegal dumping. Hopefully, we want to have an education and prevention campaign so that we stop illegal dumping. But in the meantime, we want to put more, again, boots on the ground to clean up illegal dumping. In addition, we have heard loud and clear from our council that we have a significant amount of trash that needs to be picked up on in our waterways and in our along our highways. So we've asked for we call it an interagency team, but we're looking for a whole program and again, a team to be proactive about that. We're trying to prioritize where we can do that with our partners like Caltrans and Valley Water. But in the meantime, we're looking to, again, focus on the city property lines along our waterways and near our highways. We're also looking to add dumpster days. We know dumpster days are very, very attractive to our neighborhood advocates and to our council districts. So we look to add on dumpster days. And then finally, I just wanted to let folks know the massive encampment at what we call the Guadalupe River Parks and Gardens. That is something that we are intentionally focused on, and that's costing us $1.5 million that we're seeking dollars for. So again, overall budget, and then finally, you did hear Senator Cortese talk about the Caltrans dollars. Olympia and her awesome, so Olympia and I are a team, but Olympia has a lot of folks that she's working with, and we're working across the city to put together applications so that we can draw down from Caltrans. They have Olympia knows the number. It's like $1 billion project that they're awarding $5 million project applications to. So we are going to be putting together applications, multiple applications, probably 2 or 3, to try to bring dollars into San Jose to work on beautification projects. And in addition to that, we are also using about $12 million of new state youth workforce development funds to do a job training program specifically for people 16 to 30 that will be doing environmental stewardship and doing trash pickup again within our waterways. So I said a lot, but I just wanted to give you an overview on the investments that the city is currently putting towards beautification, and again, are seeking to draw down the state funding. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Just real quickly, can you give everyone kind of the sheer magnitude of the amount of debris and illegal dumping that you pick up?
I'll let Olympia do that. And can I do a share screen? Is that possible to show you a graphic? Okay, so while Olympia's talking.
Oh, sorry. So I like to remind people that if we add up everything that we picked up in 2020 as a calendar year, and this was during the shelter in place, we picked up a little over 10.8 million pounds of trash and debris. That's in the city of San Jose's jurisdiction. I always like to remind people that if you're looking to get rid of large unwanted things, appliances, furniture, etc., we do have a free junk pickup program, because a substantial amount of the trash and debris that we do pick up are people illegally dumping things on the street or people donating to our homeless encampments, which makes it very challenging. So those are the types, and that's the type and amount of debris that we are picking up. If you see this chart here, it highlights various things, everything from cash for trash that we collect. We collect pounds through our illegal dumping program, neighborhood dumpster days at nearly 1 million pounds. We're still taking down 2.2 million square feet of graffiti. Our interjurisdictional partners at one point had picked up over 800,000 pounds of trash and debris, and our encampment trash program alone picked up over 3.2 million pounds of trash and debris. So I know that we still have some challenges, but our teams are working hard each and every day to address trash and debris throughout the city.
Thank you. And the reason why I wanted you to share what you're doing and the sheer magnitude is because Olympia and her team are doing all of this with, duct tape and bubble gum and paper clips, until those dollars and bodies are brought on board to really augment and enhance the services. We just feel like Olympia, Andrea, and their whole team are just, doing an amazing job with what they have to work with. So thank you. I really appreciate what you do.
And I can try to answer some questions that are in the chat, and we can take questions later if there's time, Vice Mayor.
That works. All right. So next we have Vanessa Beretta from our homeless response team to provide updates about outreach and services provided to homeless individuals. And I just want to say before Vanessa speaks that this is another example of a very thinly staffed team that's doing incredible work with the resources that they have to work with. So Vanessa.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Good morning. Good evening, everybody. Vanessa Beretta with the city's housing department on the homelessness response team. I manage all of our crisis response programs for the city. That being said, very similar to what was discussed before, it's everything that's for the immediate response for folks. And so the housing department on the homelessness response team, we have, as of next week, we'll have 6 staff members. So there's 6 of us, and one of us is just simply answering the calls to the homeless concerns line that I know many of you are familiar with. So we really have 5 programmatic people to manage the entire city. So yes, as mentioned, we are a small and mighty team, but we, with the partnership and the help of the Beautify team, we are trying to support all the efforts that are going on in encampments. And so with that being said, we also collaborate with the county as well, with the Office of Supportive Housing. We are one big group of folks that meet together that really just try to tackle homelessness. So we start with everything from the 5-year plan, the community plan to end homelessness, to our permanent housing solutions that were mentioned with those various funding sources that come in, to some local initiatives that we're also trying to do as well. And so we have various systems that we are trying to put into place to permanently house people, but as many of you are familiar with, that doesn't solve the problem right away. And so we are always constantly trying to look for new and innovative ways to support our encampment residents to get them to a better place than where they're at. So the Beautify team, their bread and butter is trash, debris, and really try to how to make things beautiful. The homeless response team, we are for the people. I mean, the homeless, that's what our keen goal is to try to help and support the individuals there. We oftentimes get those warm handoffs from the Beautify team, so we really couldn't do that work without them, because the city funds 2 outreach teams to do outreach around the city, specifically for downtown, and then we have one that goes citywide. And then with that being said, we go directly to the encampments, work with the individuals there, offer referrals and resources and services to the individuals at the sites, trying to get them to a better place. Some of the new things that COVID has allowed us to do, which I'm very thankful for, in partnership with the city, with the county, we have created a county-wide hotline where we're trying to give folks one place to call to try to get connected to resources. So before, it was calling some numbers or, just individualized agencies, and it just wasn't efficient for our folks. It was really difficult. So thanks to COVID, we were able to get that up off of the ground just recently. Secondly, with COVID, we were able to do what we call SOAR. It's our enhanced outreach. We are able to provide clinical on-the-ground services to the individuals in the encampments. That is drug and alcohol counseling, that's behavioral health support, that is links to the county-wide behavioral health system. And it gives us the ability to revisit encampments multiple times. And so the old model we had was very reactive to complaints, and we still have a version of that. But with this new model, and what we're trying to demonstrate is how that relationship building definitely takes time, and that relationship building definitely takes not just one visit. And so with these additional resources and this new team that we have, or teams that we have, we're able to show the success and just the longevity of what it takes to get somebody into a better place than an encampment. And so we have designated sites where these services are taking place, and we are actually looking to expand our SOAR program, which is our enhanced outreach. Some of the other projects that we are working on as well is locating safe parking, a safe parking location. So this is really to help address the RVs and the cars that are amongst the streets that folks are living in. We would rather have them in a place where there's some support and they can safely park and legally park. So we've identified a site, and we're in the works. So once it becomes public, we could share that with you. But that is going to be an additional resource that we've had, and then now we're revamping the program. We've also built 5 tiny home communities. There's a difference between our tiny homes, but in reality, they're all tiny homes. So we have 5 communities. We're looking to expand that, which is very exciting. Our next building, our next unit of tiny homes will be actually the Lot E. I'm sure many of you heard about it if you watch the news. It's going to be next to the police station. And so that's going to provide around a little over 80 units for individuals at that site. And just to kind of tap into what Gail had mentioned about having our homeless residents participate in these activities. When we do any type of outreach or any type of program design or any kind of update, we highly look to our homeless residents to give us their feedback, their input, and how we should develop it. We work with our lived experience advisory boards. We try to hold other community meetings specifically with our homeless residents to really hear their voice and really hear how they would create these programs to make them desirable for somebody to want to attend. So with the Lot E, we did have quite a few individuals participate in that design for this program. And so hopefully that it's going to be successful as our other units. I don't want to take up too much time, so I'm sure there's going to be many questions, but thank you for the opportunity to share what we're doing.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. Now I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Brian Green, the VP of Programs and Services at Life Moves, an organization that provides interim housing and supportive services to homeless families and individuals.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm with Life Moves. The legacy agency of that in Santa Clara County was Envision the Way Home, and it was Shelter Network in San Mateo County. So we are Life Moves. We're exploring the possibility of developing a site at Branham and Monterey. Our experience has convinced us that interim housing is really an asset to the community. It's better for merchants, it's better for residents, it's better for law enforcement to get people off of the street. We have a labor-intensive model. Every individual gets an individually tailored case plan. That's kind of a roadmap for exiting homelessness. We focus on throughput in our interim housing. We find that about a third of our graduates leave the Bay Area. They're working in the service sector, can't afford to live here. About a third leave the county they're in, but stay in the Bay Area. And a third of our graduates stay in the county that they are in. Our facilities are staffed 24/7, 365. There's always more than one person on staff. Site rules focus on respect and safety and dignity for everyone involved. And that means really safety and a feeling of safety for the most vulnerable client. Whether it's a young woman coming off the street, whether it's a member of the LGBTQ+ community, whoever that is. We don't allow any illegal activity on site, so no possession of illicit drugs. We focus on being a good neighbor. We've recently opened a site in Mountain View with 100 doors, 12 families and 88 families. We have quiet hours, curfews. Our program director, the site director, serves as a liaison to the community. We work really closely with law enforcement, trying to get the most challenged homeless people off the street first, so that the site really does become an asset to the community. There's of course no queuing or waiting in line for our facilities. Everything is through a voucher, so that people aren't gathering around. Just to address and answer a question in the chat, our experience is that in non-congregate sites where everyone has their own room with their own door lock and their own window and their own heating and air conditioning and their own bed and desk, that people will come into shelter and they will follow some basic rules around safety and respect. And once there are enough beds, the visible homelessness will dramatically decrease. Joe Price, you're on the phone. Did you want to add anything to this? You're on the call?
Yes, hi,
This
good
is our
evening,
VP
everyone.
of Real Estate.
Good evening, I'm Joe Price, I'm VP of Real Estate. Yes, one thing I would add is the success rates that we see with our data and addressing clients where they're at. So if we're dealing with people under the freeways or under the hedges, our success rates of moving people into permanent housing, it's as low as 6%. When we're at a safe parking site, that goes up, it's more like 33%. But when we're in a custom purpose-built facility where basic needs are being met, food, shelter, safety, as Brian has outlined, our success rates go as high as 67%. And I will leave it at that. And that's why the goal is to have more beds, create more space, and then we can visibly impact homelessness.
And I'll just add that our site in Mountain View went up in 6 months. So we created a dozen units for families and 88 units for singles and couples in a period of 6 months. And in Mountain View, it's on Leghorn, it's between the Costco and the JCC. Yeah, thank you. We'll stick around for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Green and Joe. Last but not least, our final presenter of the night will be David Lowe from Destination Home. David will be speaking about supportive and affordable housing efforts that Destination Home is currently working on.
Great, thanks, Vice Mayor, and good to see everyone here this evening. I know we're a little behind, so I'll keep it pretty brief, but I did have a couple slides I'm going to pop on just to help you guys follow along while I talk. But Destination Home is a public-private partnership that's really working to end homelessness in Santa Clara County. And what that means is that we're working with all the people you've heard from today and many other system partners to figure out how can we all work collectively to get to our goal of ending homelessness. And we fill a lot of different roles at Destination Home. We raise and deploy a lot of funding to build more housing, rental assistance that we did through COVID-19, deploying $60–70 million, working on employment programs and other efforts that can help really move the needle. We incubate new programs, and then we also advocate for the type of policies we need to really end the crisis. And at the core of this, you heard it referred to before, is our community plan to end homelessness. And this was something that was adopted in 2020 with the input of thousands of community members, many listening sessions, and subsequently adopted by our city of San Jose, county of Santa Clara, and many other partners. And it really serves as a roadmap for all the steps that we need to take to really end homelessness in our community. And I encourage you, if you have time, to go to the website, learn more. There's a lot of information in there, more of these strategies, but it really comes down to we need a comprehensive approach. We need to address these root factors that have led us down to this road to where we are today. We have to scale our housing programs, things like Life Moves and other partners are doing to get people housed. And then we need to also address these quality of life issues that affect both our unsheltered residents and the broader community as well. And so with all these efforts, coming together, we hope we can continue and start making some meaningful progress in this problem. We have a long way to go, but one thing we'd like to remind people is that, we set a very bold goal to house 20,000 people over the next 5 years. And, 18 months in, we're a quarter of the way there. A lot more work to do, but some of the efforts we're really pushing on are starting to bear fruit. And so we really want to keep going on it. And that comes to kind of the place we focus mostly, as the Vice Mayor mentioned, which is building more housing. Because at the end of the day, we know we have a lot of problems here, but they only go away if we can get people into safe and stable homes. And so the good news is, we are, again, starting to make progress. Thanks to you all who supported a housing bond back in 2016. We have thousands of deeply affordable homes, apartments, coming online in the next couple of years. In fact, you see this on here, 34 developments with 3,000 units. About half a dozen of these are already open. 3 or 4 are leasing up right now. Many more are coming online. And what that's going to mean is we're going to have thousands more units for people we can move off the streets into a home, or for those who are at risk, right? People who are severely rent burdened and need somewhere affordable and stable to go. And we think this is going to be one key part to the solution. And we like to remind people too, because there's often a lot of misconception that what we're building are like shelters or drop-in centers. But you can see some photos there of what we've built. And these are apartment buildings, in many cases, architecturally beautiful apartment buildings that are providing these homes for people to really live, thrive, and be safe. And we think that, again, is going to be the key. We know housing ends homelessness, but we're going to need to build a lot more because we just do not have enough in our community. And so that leads me to the last point I'm going to leave you on, because we know we have a lot of progress, but we have a lot of places to go. You heard from, before, but Project Home Key really does offer a unique opportunity to build a lot more of different types of housing very quickly, both interim type homes that you heard Life Moves talk about, as well as permanent homes. And we have 9 proposals that are going forward here in Santa Clara County, some great projects that we hope will get state funding. And, this could be 800 plus units that come online really quickly. And so we're really working forward. We're trying to do what we can in Destination Home to support our partners who are putting this in, but we need people to say yes. We need the support of elected officials like Vice Mayor Jones has been a big champion, but in other places like the county, our smaller cities as well. And so we hope that you all, as you're thinking about how you can get involved, will really help us and get to saying yes for these kind of solutions. And for those who are interested, we hope you'll go to our website, destinationhomesv.org, or also housingready.org, which is for our Housing Ready Communities Initiative, where you can learn a lot more about homelessness, both the data, the causes, the solutions we've talked about, and then ways to get involved, where we can help bring this conversation to other interested community members. And again, hopefully get people to say yes and speak up when these important issues come to the council for a vote. So thanks so much for letting me say a few words. Happy to stick around as well for any questions.
Thank you very much, David. Appreciate it. So now we're going to go to Q&A, and we also want to let everyone know that we have Officer Josh White from SJPD, who is here to also answer some questions, because I can guarantee that there will be some questions about short-term or immediate issues, as opposed to the medium or long-term solutions that we presented to you. So we're gonna take hands. So please raise your virtual hand and we'll take them in order. And the first question is from Doris. Go ahead, Doris.
I was wondering what the rationale is. I typed it in the chat. For removing small homeless encampments. Apparently they do go in and clean them up. And how do they make that decision that it's going to be cleaned up? I'm referring to a problem that we've got over by the Lawrence Trail, the trail along Lawrence Expressway, and the property is owned by the Valley Water District. they told us that they were forbidden to clean it up until there is a place for those people to go because of COVID. And I'm just wondering, I see other encampments being cleaned up and I don't understand why they are forbidden to clean that one up. And I wonder who could answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna pass that either to Andrea or Olympia.
Hi, so thank you for the question, Doris. So I don't want to speak on behalf of Valley Water because they may have a different policy and process in place for addressing encampment. But the city of San Jose does have protocols and processes that we follow when we need to abate an encampment and determine when to use it in an abatement versus an encampment management strategy. I would encourage you to reach out, and if you don't have the person, I can type the name in the box to Jennifer Codian over at Valley Water because she does manage, she's the deputy over their operations and maintenance to get more specific information about that encampment that you mentioned on the trail.
I think I've been in touch with her already. I've been in touch with people over there. They just say they can't do it. So I guess we're stuck. It's a dangerous situation because there's a lot of dry brush, there are dead trees, and just a few feet away are wood fences behind people who live there in homes, and they hear these people in the night and they see them cooking, they smell the food cooking down there. And so there's fires going, and right now, of course, we've got rain, but there's a concern and nothing is being done, but I have been in touch with them. So I guess it's a moot point right now, but thank you.
So I'll put my email in the chat. If you want to email me, I may be able to reach out and get additional information to find out. Thank you.
Thank you. Alanya? Go ahead, Alanya.
Oh, sorry, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, so going back to my favorite encampment on Winchester and Moore Park. The other day that they decided to throw rocks in my car. And I called, like you mentioned to me, I called the number. I don't even know what happened because no one called me back to tell me whether someone came or not to address that. And then the very next day there was a fire in that camp and I called the San Jose PD. They drove by, they just, not PD, but the fire department, they just drove by, looked at it and drove away. I guess it wasn't significant enough. What is it gonna take? I mean, someone getting killed over there? Because I call all the time. I know neighbors call all the time. That encampment is moving slowly into the neighborhood. And just the other day, the neighbor, because I was kicked out from next door, the neighbor emailed me saying, and she mentioned that before, and I told you that her autistic child is now afraid to leave the house. So it's them winning, and we just have to stay at home. We can't leave our houses. What's going to happen to us? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I'm gonna ask a couple of our city folks to weigh in on that. Actually, Josh, I'm going to start out with you and then go to other folks.
Oh boy, it got a little dark. Hold on. Hi, sorry, it's a little bit dark in the car. All right, for everybody that doesn't know me, I'm Officer Josh White. I've been a San Jose police officer for over the last 3 years. About the last year and a half, I have worked primarily in Western San Jose, which is namely District 1 and part of District 6. In regards to the encampment over at Moore Park in Winchester, or any encampments or any single or groups of people living out of their vehicles or RVs. The police department, since we fall under the city, we have our own protocols. We have to go through the city in order to abate encampments. The police, unfortunately, we can't do that on our own. And with that in mind, while we have received a lot of complaints from that encampment, many of the complaints that we've heard aren't being reported to either our non-emergency or emergency lines. And again, when it's things like campfires or noise issues. If there's no immediate danger being presented by those issues, there may not be a lot that we or the fire department can do in those situations. And that's due to, one, our staffing. We're currently trying to reduce our response times to priority 1 and priority 2 calls, which are namely life and property are being threatened. So a lot of the issues that are brought up about the encampments are quality of life issues, which generally fall further down on our priority list. By the time the fire department gets there or the police officers get there, the action that may have been seen by somebody who's driving by in the moment may have already been done. The person's already calmed down, the person's already left, or the fire's been put out because they're done cooking their food and they're done eating their food. So there's no reason for the fire to be lit anymore. And in those situations, at best, we usually have what would be considered a misdemeanor crime. And in some cases, they would be infractions, which are akin to a traffic citation as well. And like I said, I'm not sure, the last calls for service that we have in our system are from October 25th. Those are calls for service specifically for the San Jose Police Department. Those are not for the fire department or other city resources. And those were for a traffic light being out and for a non-injury vehicle collision at that intersection. So while I'm not sure who exactly you reported the rock incident to, we don't have that call in the police system. So I'm not sure if that was maybe reported to another city entity.
Thank you, Officer White. Vanessa or Andrea, did you also want to shed some more insight in terms of how we can possibly respond or take action in those types of scenarios where we have an encampment that doesn't meet our criteria for immediate abatement?
I'll start and then Vanessa can add. Let me start by saying I can understand it is challenging. I remind people that I also live in the city of San Jose. I don't just work here, I live here. This is home for me. I've grown up here. I own a home here. In terms of the encampment at Moore Park in Winchester, it does not meet our immediate protocol. It's not 150 feet from a school, and there are no safety hazards at this time that would deem it, that would move it to an abatement list. It is a cash for trash site, meaning that we do have residents that are participating in a program that say they're willing to bag up their trash and be more proactive about it. What makes this site more challenging is that we have people that tend to go back and forth from the city jurisdiction to the state jurisdiction. So it is also on our priority list when we work with Caltrans. I do understand the complexity and the issues, but two things I'd like to remind people of. If there's a crime in progress that you see at the encampment, we really need you to reach out to SJPD. You can dial 311 if it's non-emergency, if it's a quality of life issue. But if there's a crime in progress, then we need you to call 911 because that helps us. Because oftentimes when we get these complaints, we do look and work with PD to see what has been reported and if there are safety issues that are going to move this encampment to a place that it needs to be abated. Otherwise, we send out the encampment trash program team and they continue to work with folks to get them to scale down the amount of trash and debris that they have at the site, get the site cleaned up. If we find that people aren't cooperative, what we typically will do is go in, clean up the site through an escalated cleanup, but that does not typically remove folks. We do work closely with Vanessa's team with the goal of having that people receiving ongoing outreach with the hopes that they're going to transition into housing.
Thank you, Olympia. Vanessa, I don't know if you have any additional information to add, but I thought I'd ask.
No, my colleagues covered it. I know that we're short on time, so no, they summed it up very well.
Thank you. Gail?
I'm sorry. I did want to say something about that site. There's no services being offered to folks. I'm sorry. I mean, there's aren't services. People on this call, you have to realize when nobody's going to this site, nobody's seeing and servicing mental health services. I mean, I'm not anybody that they would listen to, and I've been meaning to go over there, but I haven't. And I will go over there and see if I can talk to some of them and get to know them and get their trust, because that's what they need. You know, I'm really sorry to state this, but most people unhoused do not want to go into a homeless shelter. This is nothing against Life Moves. I don't mean it, but I'm sorry. But because being in a shelter is not a very safe place for people to be. I think mostly they'd rather live outside. I know that doesn't make sense, but that's reality. A lot of these shelters aren't run very, very well. But anyway, I'm just saying, you know, I will try to help out there. I don't know if they will listen to me. I'm nobody special that they would, but I think they need to have somebody out there that will give them some attention and talk to them. And maybe I could get some mental health services or behavior health. That's what probably they need. Maybe they won't listen. A lot of the unhoused do listen to me, and I've helped them, and I will try to do something and support that and report back to David on Chappie's staff to let him know. And maybe David and I can even go out there together one time soon. So thank you.
Thank you, Gail.
If I could just add to that real quick to make sure that everybody does know, when you report to the Homeless Concerns Line, your reports do not go unheard. We have had outreach out at this site everywhere from 10/7 to 10/26. It looks about 8 different times. So outreach has been out there and services are being offered.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Vice Mayor, could I just add one thing real quick?
Sure.
I just wanted to follow up on the point Gail mentioned. I mean, I think there is some group folks who are not very eager to go into shelter, but I think the one thing we have consistently found when we're talking to people who are unsheltered is that there is an eagerness to go into housing. And so the type of permanent housing we're talking about, or the interim housing that Life Moves is building, which is one of the reasons we're trying so hard to accelerate building that. So we have places for people to go. So just one nuance I want to make there, and one of the reasons of the type of housing we're really focused on is because we think that is the way we can get to where we're actually having less people in encampments and on the streets.
Thank you. Catherine?
Hi, thank you so much. So I'm just curious to know what is being done to address the abatement issue. I mean, there's no resources, but yet, you know, you have one person that starts an encampment and next thing you know is it's grown to 15. Isn't there a way we can actually do something earlier in the process than waiting until it becomes a bigger problem? That's one question. To the person that made the comment about not making poverty illegal, I wasn't, or I don't think anyone was saying about making poverty illegal. I think it's more of making it illegal for someone to be cutting down fences to hide behind some, you know, in the Caltrans area. I live up against the 280 freeway and I have a camp that's 100 feet away from my front door. I don't want it there. And I'm trying to figure out what I can do to get it resolved. And I'm told, get in line because there's so many other encampments going on. Well, I feel concerned about my safety. I found needles on the street. I mean, and we have kids that use the walkover. We have lots of seniors that walk in the neighborhood. It's not safe. And now our neighborhood's even looking more like a impoverished neighborhood with, you know, people sleeping on the actual street. I mean, people having to walk over people on the street. So I'd like to know what we can do to shut things down faster. I appreciate everything that all of your departments are saying that you're doing to try and address the problem. I know it's a big issue, but I'm wondering, what can we do? Our little neighborhood here is been doing everything that we can. We send in our tickets, we make the police calls, we make all those things. Even when there's a crime in progress, no one shows up. They're like, oh, well, it wasn't as big of another issue that we were working on. So again, I'm trying to figure out what can I do? I mean, truthfully, I don't think that enough is being done for those smaller encampments or even the big ones, whatever. We need to do something sooner, because if we don't, what's going to happen is people are going to be pissed off. They're not going to take it anymore. And you're going to see that the people in the neighborhoods are going to take control, and that's not going to be a good thing. So I know that's a lot that I just said, but you know, I want to know what I need to do. I have a person that's living directly in front of my door, my front door, 100 feet. That's not okay with me. I pay my taxes like everybody else does. So when I get told, oh, sorry, too bad, it could take months before you have that person removed. That's not okay for me. And truthfully, they stand behind there and they say, oh, well, you better not do anything because I have more rights than you. I'm going to call the police. And he actually did call the police. So, you know, anyways, that's what I have to say. Somebody out there in your group, please tell me what I need to do.
Great question, Catherine. And I know this question has come up and it's going to continue to come up in terms of what can we do in the short term to provide immediate relief to the neighbors that feel like they've been impacted by, you know, homeless individuals near their homes or trespassing on their property or committing crimes. And you know, we talked a little bit, or actually a lot, about, you know, what we're doing and what we're trying to do, but this really goes to the heart of, I know, the frustration that my residents have, that I have, that our city staff have, and that is, what can we do in the short term? If we go in and, you know, remove those individuals, then they either, one, just come right back, or they just move to a different location down the street or around the block. So that's I know that's not an answer to your question, but I just want to just frame it in terms of.
I get it. I get it. That's a whack-a-mole story. I get it. You move them from one area, they move to another area. We need to do something else. I don't know if it means we need to hire our own personal, you know, security group or what in the neighborhood, because it's not okay to have people that you have to walk over. We have a lot of seniors in our area and we have a lot of kids. And for me to see people doing crack on the street or, you know, needles in the street, that's not okay with me. You know, we don't live in a impoverished neighborhood. These are very expensive homes here, you know, 1.5 and greater. And yet having someone living 100 feet from my front door is not okay. And it shouldn't be okay for anybody. So mentally ill need to be addressed. I hear you guys are working on all these great things, and that's great 10 years down the road. But even Gail said she's been working on the homeless issue for 30 years. How long am I supposed to wait? How long is this neighborhood supposed to wait? You have, I still see the stuff that's going on in Moore Park and all the other ones.
Yeah, the Moore Park has been there since 2018.
Well, so the other issue, one other issue is the person that's sitting behind this fence across the street from my home is what's considered Caltrans property. And it's also a jurisdiction of CHP because it's against the freeway, but yet I can't get any action. They'll come and they'll repair the fence and then it gets cut the same day, but they won't remove the encampment. So it's an actual fire hazard back there. I mean, the neighborhood is trying to clean up the area because we can't get Caltrans to take action. So what are you guys doing towards Caltrans?
All, you know, great questions. And again, if I had the answer, or if we all had the answer, then we would have addressed it. But part of what we're trying to accomplish with this Homelessness Roundtable is to come together as a community and maybe come up with some of those solutions or recommendations. Or
well, how do you find like short-term solutions? I mean, I see that you have these long-term solutions. We need a short-term solution.
I totally agree. I totally agree. So we need to move to the next.
So does Catherine have any kind of legal foundation, somebody that she could stand on to have this person removed? Or does that guy have more rights than her? Do we know? Do you have an answer?
I'm going to defer to Officer White on that question.
Okay, so I don't want to give too many answers just because I don't understand the complete situation. Obviously, I've only heard. I'm sure there's a lot more issues that she could bring up. In regards to the jurisdictional issue, unfortunately, San Jose Police Department can't. We're not going to be taking any enforcement action on the freeway. In regards to, I'm not sure what you mean by sleeping on the street. I don't know if that means are people setting up tents, are people just laying on the sidewalk, are people in their cars. In regards to that, the San Jose Police Department right now, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, is we're moving more towards offering services to people that are living in their vehicles rather than taking enforcement action such as towing the vehicle and stuff like that. And that's mostly because if they're already homeless and we tow their vehicle, that vehicle has all their possessions in it, and it basically resets them back to square one. They no longer have their vehicle because they most likely don't have the financial stability in order to pay to get it out of the police impound. And then after that, they no longer have the vehicle for good. That's one of the major issues with people living in their cars, is we have to think of what the spirit of the law is versus the letter of the law. And in this case, the spirit of the law is kind of goes to that question of, would you rather have somebody and all their belongings within their car versus would you rather have them laying out on the street, especially with it becoming, colder now. In regards to, I would encourage everybody here that if you are witnessing crimes in progress or crimes that have already occurred and the suspect has already left the area, to report those crimes. Now, it does fall on the homeowner or the citizen who sees these crimes happen. You need to understand that when the police arrive, if the person is unwilling to be a victim, or if you drive by and you say, we think we saw a certain situation, if during our investigation we determine, or we can't determine that occurred, we can identify the person that we believe was responsible, but we may not have a crime. And that all goes down to what elements and each individual incident has occurred. I can't give you the answers for everything right now because I don't know all the situations that have been reported. I haven't gone out there too often for calls, so I don't know what crimes possibly are occurring. And I also can't tell you whether or not a crime has occurred without very specific details and asking my investigative questions. I'm sorry, I have a radio talking in my ear. So I would encourage everybody to report things that they see, but you also need to realize that it may appear that we drive up and do nothing, but that's very possibly because we talk with the person and we determine that no crime has been committed or that there's not an enforcement action that we can take at that moment.
Josh, well, I'm sorry, what about maybe put in the chat for Catherine your crisis intervention line that people on this call, sorry to interrupt, people on this call can contact the crisis intervention unit from the police?
We don't have I don't believe I have a direct number for that unit. Now, every single San Jose police officer is crisis intervention trained. However, we do have a specialized unit that works. I'm not sure of their exact hours right now, but they do work during the week and will respond out to assist patrol officers with county resources to address mental health issues.
Thank you. We need to move on to the next person. Lauren?
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. I have a different tact and a different question. Is anybody in the business community, specifically somebody that's a business owner, looking at offering their buildings for temporary housing, meaning buildings that are large enough to have cafeterias, to have restrooms in places, multiple locations in the building? I drive by so many empty buildings, and this isn't just because of COVID. They're empty because they're not currently rented. And I've had this idea for some time, and I was thinking at a prior meeting I'd been to, I'd shared that idea, and I kind of seemed like it was too unusual or too off the wall for most folks. And then I'm hearing tonight it's not really the most effective solution. However, it seems like it would buy some time if people felt safe and felt sheltered, and it was monitored or managed in an effective way to become a potential short-term solution. So I just wanted to pitch that idea and see if anybody's working on that, and if I could loop in with anybody that might be considering something like that.
Thank you. Vanessa, you want to?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's very generous of you to even suggest that. We have an ordinance actually through the housing department that's our temporary incidental shelter ordinance. So any private business, if they choose to donate or use their facility, they would be able to do that. The caveat is they would rent or they would run their own program through there. So a lot of our faith-based communities typically use this ordinance. It's not to say that it's something we can explore. So if you have a business that you're familiar with that might be willing to donate a space, we're always looking for space. So I will put my email in the chat. And if there's anything that you were thinking of, I'm happy to explore.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Judith?
Yes, hello, everybody. Thank you for being on this call. And Chappie, we know each other since years. So I live close to the Winchester Moore Park. I think I know where the exit of Winchester is from 280. This is what we are talking about. Later down, I want to get in contact with Gail and Brian also. So I see Brian's solution is the perfect intermediate high-end solution, and Gail seems to be really on the ground. We were, my husband and myself, we were purposely camping in our new Airstream, which is the year 1968. I renovated it myself, so we did it on purpose on a piece of land, and this was up in Washington. It is maybe the land where we retire, so the neighbors really welcomed us, or they know us since years. We had fresh water there. And I was sitting in the trailer. So this was a self-chosen situation. My husband was able to have solar system there. We had internet. We worked from home. And we thought it was really funny to have the deers running in front of our trailer every evening at the same time. And my colleagues couldn't believe it. But driving home after 4 weeks, when the rain came, it was not so comfortable anymore. We went through Portland, and I was shocked what I saw there. And on the drive home from there to California, I really thought about how do people live and feel if they live there? I mean, a woman can't be safe at night if she lives in a tent. Everything can happen to her. So what I'm missing, I see here a very frustrated city, or a city who can't do anything or has multiple programs, and it really depends. Money is in this budget, money is in that budget, we can't use it, we can't mix and match. On the other side, I see super frustrated people who live or who have homeless people in front of their homes. What I miss here is the minimum needs for people is fresh water, toilet, and a garbage can. And why can't we have in the city, for example, where this area is Winchester Moore Park, I don't see these minimum facilities and then go from there. Say, what is the next? The next is maybe a safe, almost like box like or teeny tiny house or something mini for people to sleep at night, to be able to lock themselves in at night and get rest, because I could sleep in the trailer. I was fine. I knew I'm safe. Nothing would happen. But just try to put yourself in the shoes of these homeless people. They must have fear during the night. How can they function at daytime? How can they try to make their life better, enhance something? They must have fear that if they walk 10 steps away, their belongings get stolen or trashed or burned or whatever. So
Judith, hey Judith, I'm sorry for interrupting. We're coming against the hour, and what you're saying is well said, and we definitely have heard you, and you described, those living conditions and what it's like, very, very well. Do you have a specific question that we can address to the?
Why can't we have minimum needs covered for everybody? We even have people in our street camping in cars. Why can't there be a designated toilet on the next parking lot or something like this? There is nothing. We have garbage cans with poop in our street. We pick up the poop from our dogs, and sometimes we take those with us too.
So I'm going to ask Vanessa and Olympia to tackle that question.
I'll start. We would love to be able to put out porta potties, hand washing stations, and dumpsters at locations to provide those sanitation services. However, most of our neighborhoods, unfortunately, have not been receptive to that. People have pushed and have fought, and oftentimes Vanessa is working with communities and fighting, and we're looking for ways to get those very basic services in. So if people are interested, we'd be happy to talk about placing those at encampments where we do have city space and jurisdiction where it's safe to put those type of sanitation services. Did I miss something, Vanessa?
No, that is correct, Olympia. And we do currently actually have porta potties and hand washing stations throughout the city, not at every single encampment, but we did pilot this idea and it is being used. And then in regards to safe parking and places for people to park, we do have a safe parking program that we are implementing and just secured a lot, and in the process of developing the scope of that program as well. So if you have ideas of where else there could be porta potties or hand washing stations, please feel free to email me and I could definitely explore that.
Thank you. Next person is Brian.
Hi, so I'm the VP of Life Moves programs. I just want to give things a little bit of context. Until the onset of the pandemic, the great majority of shelters were congregate living. And these are shelters operated by Life Moves and other providers. And people slept in barrack-style dormitories. And homeless folks, they value privacy just like middle-class or housed folks do. So we found that as we deploy non-congregate shelters where everyone gets their own 80 square feet and a locked door, as someone said, even the most challenging folks will accept shelter and exit the streets. So an answer to unsheltered homelessness is a bed that affords some semblance of privacy. But we've just started this initiative with non-congregate living since the onset of the pandemic. And I think that as we deploy these new sites and services, the community will see an impact. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's the last hand that was raised. So I want to say thank you to all of our local elected officials, staff members, community members, and organizations that took time to attend this meeting. But most importantly, thank you for the community that for coming out. And I know that particularly for the short-term issues that you're facing, having encampments near your home, or having issues that are related to the encampment, that we want to continue this process. The goal was to inform, educate, and engage the community on the topic of homelessness. We didn't have an expectation that we'd have all the answers tonight, but our desire and vision is to work with the community on an ongoing basis to try to come up with some creative solutions. And we heard a couple of creative solutions that were offered up tonight. And I'm looking forward to working with you as quickly as possible, because I know that there is a sense of urgency to try to come up with short-term solutions as we work on the medium and long-term solutions. So we hear you. We understand, your challenges, and there's a whole team of people that are working hard day and night to try to figure out how we can address the homelessness issue. So we're going to have continue this dialogue. We're going to have a series of meetings that we're going to have, and I'm looking forward to engaging with you in the future. To stay involved, reach out to my office if you have any questions. Talk to your neighbors, try to get them involved, and together, we will come up with some solutions to solve this problem. You can always reach out to Annalie on my team if you have any comments and questions. And Annalie, let's keep the chat, let's keep the Zoom meeting open for a little while, just so that folks can look at the 100 or so chats that were posted. And on that note, thank you everyone, and have a great evening. Take care.
Thank you, Chappie. Wonderful meeting.
Thank you.
So Judith. Judith.
Yes, I got your note. I will write you an email.
So, I mean, you said something about porta potties, and then somebody on the call saying we don't want porta potties in our neighborhood. So that's unfortunate, But I'm going to go out there and I'm going to talk to them and see how many people. And I think it's important to get porta potties or a hand station out there just for them. I mean, there's no reason why.
It's in a neighborhood. It is in a neighborhood. It should not have porta potties put in the neighborhood. If you want to have them come and live in your front yard, that's what we can do. But I don't think you should be putting porta potties in the neighborhood.
What about on the business corners, on the bank? Put them in the bank parking lot.
Anyway, Judith,
Catherine, I hear you. I don't want to have a porta potty in front of my door as well. But this is really an emergency situation. And Gail, I would like to join you when you go there, because it's we have to understand the minimum needs people have and how we find a solution. And as Brian said, if you offer them the minimum, this will go away. Nobody wants to live next to the freeway. I would not sleep well next to the freeway. These are conditions people don't choose to live in if they have just a little bit of common sense or basic needs.
I would agree that you're probably right. A lot of them may not want to, but there's a lot of them that do. They're drug addicts. They don't want services. They want to be able to run this
all the time. But this can't be such a big percentage, and nobody. And really, if you are a woman, you don't want to sleep on the street. Hell, unless you are so drugged. And if I would have to sleep on the street, I would be drugged as well. So this is like it's a circle, and we can't argue. I think like this. I don't want them in front of my house. I absolutely agree. I don't want a potty in front of my house. I absolutely agree. But there must be a solution in the time in between and get them off. Absolutely, because nobody wants to live like this.
Yeah, of course they don't want to live like this, but maybe looking at the site there at Winchester and 280 might be a good idea. I just want to say there's a gentleman on the call, Aubrey. I think he's with, I haven't met him personally, but he's with Abode, right, Aubrey? Uh-oh, maybe he's gone. Anyway, Abode is a good service nonprofit that works with the unhoused, and they've done a wonderful job. But Judith, so my information is going out by, you know,
I
the
got it.
office.
Yeah.
And David Gomez and I are going to talk this week and maybe meet this week. So we can, he has your information and we'll get together, okay?
Okay, thank you.
And thank you, everybody. You're wonderful people. I know it's hard. Believe me, I know it's hard. I hit my head against the wall every day when I come home from the camp and just go, wow, why isn't this thing taken care of?
Look, if anybody could help me with the solution as to what to do with the person that's living directly across 100 feet from my front door, that's what I'm hoping you can do. I get that you go out to help the homeless. If you can, come by and have a visit with them and see what we can do to make
Okay,
him.
I will be happy to do that, Catherine. I mean that. And have them give you my info. And but that also, I was kind of surprised this officer did know about the crisis intervention.
Well, he does. Well, you know what? I have called crisis intervention. I've had the crime scene team come out here to pick up needles off the street. I've had the police out. I've had Caltrans come by. I've had David Gomez and them come drive by. I don't know what else to do. I have a person that's 100 feet from my front door.
Okay.
That's not okay with me.
I
I'm
understand.
responsible as well. You are absolutely right. This is.
Sorry, just to let everyone know, this is the 5-minute mark. We're gonna close the.
Okay, and she will send the information. I promise you, Catherine, and everybody's my witness.
Well, I'm at the corner of Cypress and Constance Drive at the 280 walkover on the north side of 280. That is where it is. That's exactly where it is. So it's at the sound wall on the walkover.
Okay, well, David, we could, okay. Thank you, Catherine. I promise I will do that. Or
I would appreciate any help we can get. That's
okay.
That's all we're asking is we would want the person, you know, I'm sorry that they're homeless, but I don't want them on my front door.
I understand.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Have a blessed evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gail.
Thanks, hon.
So do you guys plan to have follow on where we are, ideas that you took or things like that? You're going to have these scheduled regularly?
Yeah, I think we are planning to have additional meetings, and we're going to reach out to other organizations and other offices to see if we can continue to engage the community on this. So they'll go out through our newsletter and social media outlets.
So it's very frustrating as I type. So I like hearing all the information, all the different groups. Do you have a consolidated page that you can point people, hey, here's the type of service we're offering, like from those people on the call here tonight, and say, if you have this type of issue, go here. If you have this type of issue, go here. Do you have a page or a resource that you can point people to?
We have a page on our website with all of the contact information for elected officials, but regarding the people on this call, if you send me an email, I can give you all of the contact information for the people that presented tonight.
I would suggest you make it available to everybody, like on your website. I think it would be beneficial instead of me one-off, right? I'm just one person, right? But I like the different things I heard, but the short term seems to be the immediate thing we're having an issue with. I do like some of the long-term solutions I heard, but it's frustrating, very frustrating.
Understandably, yeah. And yeah, I will talk to the vice mayor about adding that onto the
Okay.
website.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for joining.
Do you have the contact from the gentleman with the tiny houses?
Was that Life Moves or Destination Home?
Yes, but Brian was his name, I think.
Yeah, that would be Life Moves. Yes, I do. Here, I'm gonna put my email in the chat. If you email me, I can give you the contact information.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Continue your work. There's a lot of needs and frustration.
Thank you, Judith. Thanks for your input, and feel free to reach out to our office if you have any questions or comments. I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting now, so I hope you have a good night.
Bye.